I'm interested in being alive and being as alive as possible. And when we're born, we are alive. Little tiny children are just curious and exploring and very trusting. And as we grow up, we get inside of whatever culture we're born into. And we learn the kinds of experiences and the kinds of language and the kinds of behaviors that are acceptable. And there's nothing wrong with that, except that an awful lot of us get stuck there. And we lose that sort of childish imagination that we started out with, and we get stuck in ruts. And I'm quite certain that those ruts are not just intellectual or social or political. They're also experiential. They're how we see, what we smell, what we feel, what we touch, and the whole range of emotions that are available to us. All that comes as part of culture as well. And I am seriously interested in trying to learn how to move quickly or slowly out of those habitual modes of experience. The world is absolutely full of astonishing miracles at every level, and you don't have to be religious in order to think that. You can be perfectly secular. You can be a total atheist and think that. One of my favorite examples is my rock, or one of many rocks that I have. Every object, if you pay the right kind of attention to it, and what we're going to be doing, at least in part, is paying attention to our own processes of paying attention. Anything, any object, any person, when you pay the proper attention to it, can extend into the infinite. Take this stone. To a geologist, well, it's full of crystals and minerals, and you can tell what age it is by what kinds of things are in there, and you can tell the pressure that formed it, and it's you can spend a lifetime learning about the histories and the behaviors of the things that went into the making of this rock. If you're me and you picked it up off a beach along the coast of Maine, it brings with it all those memories of that location and the sound of the sea and the seaweed and the gulls and the people you were with when you picked it up. And if I show it to some of you, you may be reminded, for instance, of the fact that your sister once hit you on the head with a stone just like this. And that will bring back a flood of memories and associations. And you can go on and on and on. A biologist would look at this rock as a substrate for all sorts of sea creatures to live on. I had to scrape them off in order to bring it home. And that takes you in a whole nother direction. If you had seen this in an art exhibit sitting on a pedestal with a little plaque next to it saying stone, and it said where it was picked up and who it was picked up by, and it was just sitting there for you to look at, and you're a museum goer, you would pause and you would think about the stone and what its presence there might mean. And if you're the right kind of person, you might think, well, the stone really is kind of present. And so am I. And the stone maybe has something to tell me, and that's why this artist put it in this museum. Or you might be a poet, and you might say, With Charles Simic, you might say, I have seen sparks fly out when two stones are rubbed, so perhaps they're not dark inside after all. Perhaps there's a moon shining from somewhere, as though behind a hill, just enough light to make out the strange writings, the star charts on the inner walls. You know, so you can do, this works for any object in any situation, whatever. And it takes you wherever your relationship with the object wants to go, and you don't have a lot of control over it. What makes that kind of attention possible is a kind of love. Because paying close attention to anything is a kind of love. And maybe it's a kind of love that most people don't know about. And maybe because they don't know about those sorts of rudimentary kinds of love, maybe they're not very good at other kinds of love. And maybe if you practiced with stones and the ocean and the sky and animals, maybe if you practiced with them, you'd get better at loving other things like people, like your children, and your lovers, you know? My favorite writer, one of my favorite writers, James Hillman, puts it this way: lovers like to explore. We like to explore and discriminate more and more widely to increase the intricacy that intensifies intimacy. You see what that means. When you love to explore, to discriminate more and more widely and increase the intricacy that intensifies intimacy. And that can be done with anything in the world: a breath of air, a cloud, a dog, a person, a rock. And my contention is that nobody teaches us this. Nobody teaches us that it's important. And so it's up to us to learn it, because it will make our lives so much better.